Hope everybody's doing okay. This is part 6 of the Slaves of Satan series, and this is around the point where um, everything should start coming together and picking up, and realizing that it cannot be by chance how everybody from all these different areas of the world, from different cultures, in different societies, different wealth brackets, um, could just be in this disgustingly satanic web attached to each other by sheer coincidence. Things like this, um, in the world when it comes to the occult is either by two things. It's carefully mapped out by the higher occultists from the generation before, or it's supernaturally all put into motion by Lucifer. I personally subscribe to that more than I do the first, but there's a combination of it. So anyways, since we're finally getting into mega theory on the Beast 666, Aleister Crowley. First, it's important to look at um who made who helped shape this person into becoming just, I don't, words can't even describe it. Just the seer just demonic prince of depravity, disgust, sexual immorality, violence, hatred, anything that was evil. He wanted. If you were to read an autobiography that actually tells you the truth about his life, because what happens nowadays is a lot of these people try to say that it was all philosophy, and they say that he wasn't really serious, that he was running with the narrative for publicity. No, that's not what it is. Anyone that actually studies the actual trails and accounts of this man's life, not New Agers online trying to take up for him, then you'll really think that this person sounds worse than the devil himself. I'm not even kidding. Um, and I even heard people make the claim that Aleister Crowley was not a Satanist, and that's like saying that Hitler wasn't a Nazi. It's it's the equivalent. Anyways, the focus is Samuel Liddell MacGregor Mathers, which be at one point Crowley was a amateur ceremonial magician. Um, yes, he was dabbling in the dark arts since at least 11 or 12, I believe it was, even earlier than that. Um, but somebody at some point has to teach you advanced magic to get this whole ball rolling. You can only go so far on your own, and that's with any system of spirituality or mysticism. Rather it's the occult, or rather it's esoteric Christianity, which I identify as with the Pentecostal oneness doctrine. Um, one can only go so far in Christianity in the spiritual walk by themselves. Eventually, somebody needs to learn from somebody else. Of course, we can learn the scriptures by ourselves, but when it comes to the spiritual things that people don't understand at some point, everybody needs an advisor at the very least. So there's a lot to say about Samuel Liddell MacGregor Mathers. He started the magical occult order. Well, him and two other Masons, 33rd degree Masons, started the occult order called the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, which was considered by far the most influential. Other people won't call it what it is, but I'll be real and call it a cult. And Samuel Liddell MacGregor Mathers seemed to be kind of the ringleader in institutionalizing what this was all about, because you had an inner order. You had the outer order, the inner order, and the secret order. I'm not going to go into detail about what it was about, but in the top ranks, it was all about something that Samuel MacGregor Mathers obtained, and no one knows how he obtained it. Something called the cipher manuscripts, and I believe it was Hebrew that they were written in, and they were coded, and it led them to a woman that they believed had to be present for the goal to be accomplished, but in short form of the story, it was all about getting in contact with these beings known as the secret chiefs, which I believe I spoke about briefly once on one of my other YouTube videos about the Ascended Masters, because the Ascended Masters are the physical extension of the secret chiefs, because the secret chiefs are these cosmic demons that obviously they would refer to as gods, but the just like the false gods of the Old Testament, and these things are extremely dangerous. I actually know somebody who bought a book by Israel Regardie about the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, and didn't really know what he was buying or what it was exactly about, and pretty much just by touching the book and flipping through a few pages, he had a supernatural experience. That if I didn't know about the book, I would have claimed that it was the so-called aliens attempting to use to do an abduction, but from the description, it was very, very similar to what the people in the inner order, in the secret order, claimed that the secret chiefs could do to people. They can slow down time, implant memories inside of you, and all kinds of other stuff that I don't really feel like I should talk about, but nobody should seek these things out. They're unimaginably dangerous. Like I say, the Ascended Masters are too, but the Ascended Masters typically can't really do much physically. It's more mental manipulation. But when it comes to these different types of strange adversaries to God, like the Mahatmas, the Astar Command, the Great White Brotherhood, the Ascended Masters, the Unknown Hierarchy. Their secret chiefs by far seem to be the most dangerous of them. And he was also in offsuit of Rosicrucianism, called the Societas Rosicrucianus, in Anglia. Yeah, I believe that's it. That's the one. Which was an interesting offsuit, because Rosicrucianism has always mixed Christianity in with their belief system. That's why when I tell somebody that identifies an esoteric Christian, I make sure that I elaborate and let them know that I don't mean that I'm that, because that's what some people would think. And this was kind of an odd Rosicrucian group. There's a different degree system, and the requirements was a little bit different to join. For this one, you had to be a Master Mason, and the unique part is you had to be a Christian of the Trinitarian doctrine, which I find kind of ironic, because the Rosicrucianism is far from a Christian order, whatever they will tell you. Just because they have Christian ideas does not make them a Christian group. And like people know that's watched many of these, I did not subscribe to the Trinitarian doctrine, because it's polytheism. I believe that Jesus Christ is everything. I believe that we have a God that shows to manifest in three different forms: the omnipresent Spirit of Yahweh, the physical presence that was Yeshua on the earth, and then the part that lives in us is mighty Ruach Kodesh. But it's absolutely all one being, and it's all Jesus. There is no Trinity, so it makes sense why an order that believes in occult practices would be so adamant about the Trinity, because it's a way for them to be polytheistic but be slick about it. He was also a Kabbalist, which is not surprising, because, like I say, there's something that you always find in all of these arcane schools is the Kabbalah. The Kabbalah and Hermeticism are the two things that always lurks in them. And they use the tree of life as a grading system, but this isn't a video about the Hermetic order. He was also in the Theosophical Society, which was the occult order started by Helena Blavatsky, which she was the first person to officially start the doctrine of what later became known as the Ascended Masters, because at her time she was calling them Mahatmas, Masters of Wisdom, or just Masters. And pretty much the only difference between the Mahatmas and the Ascended Masters is the appearance. The Ascended Masters looked more like modern humans, but they looked otherworldly at the same time, and the Mahatmas looked more like people from like Tibet or India. They usually had turbans, or they would be dark colored skin and look like they were from some part of India or something like that. And it and Theosophy is a very dangerous and and I would say extremely evil order to be a part of. Um, because like I said in part one of this video, that's who I actually talked about first. They're an order that openly worships Lucifer, which for that time in the 1800s was extremely rare. And also, um, I also mentioned Samuel Liddell MacGregor Mathers was also an honorary 8th degree of the Societas Rosicrucian, that order that he was in, and that specific order goes up to only 9, while traditional orders typically go up slightly higher. And probably before I get to that, later he branched off from the Golden Dawn and started his own occult society called Alpha and Omega, and that's still around today too. So he was affiliated with quite a lot of dangerous and important groups. So, what did he do? What's his crime against God? There's 2 primary things we need to focus on. The first thing that we'll talk about is what book that he helped push out, which and these writings were around for many centuries. I believe the first book that this was in around the 1700s. Before this, the writings were passed down in secret, and they were individual manuscripts. And Samuel Liddell MacGregor Mathers was the last person to add anything in addition to this book when they compiled it all together. So him and Aleister Crowley came together and published the Ars Goetia, the Lesser Key of Solomon, which is one of the most popular grimoires in existence that anybody uses. It's known for the Goetia of 72 demons, and it teaches you how to make the sigils. It tells you what all each demon does. I beg anyone watching this, do not buy a copy. Do not read it online. For people that don't really understand how serious things like this can be. It sounds so good reading what these beings can do for you in the short term, but the long term effects are unbelievably critical. So that's damage to God's children of the world, but most people that's Christian that researches would agree that by far his biggest crime to humanity was teaching Aleister Crowley ceremonial magic and initiating him into the Golden Dawn, because originally a lot of the people at the Golden Dawn did not like him because he had very disgusting, explicit poetry that was so perversive. Not one publishing company in the whole country of England would even publish it back then. Like people think they've heard everything disgusting sexually. No, they haven't. So this was before he went over to Egypt at the Cairo Museum, and got the revelation from Horus and Iwas and wrote the Book of the Law. So he met Samuel Liddell MacGregor Mathers in 1898, and during this time frame is when he learned the ceremonial magic, learned Kabbalah, alchemy, astrology, zodiac, gematria, um, tree of life, the Qifo, tree of death, and I believe that's pretty. Oh, tarot, astral projection, all pretty much all forms of divination. They taught ESP, telekinesis, and then obviously after that, later in his life, he went on to do far, far, far worse things than what the Golden Dawn taught, and he eventually got removed from that order of the Golden Dawn because he was too evil for the Golden Dawn to even accept. So Samuel MacGregor Mathers was the one that met him, initiated him, taught him the ceremonial magic, and nobody really knows how deep he went, but with teaching him. But for some reason, he took a liking to him, and from everything I've gathered throughout the years, sources say that Samuel Adele MacGregor Mathers was a very, very, very top tier occultist, and it's not my place to say where he ended up in the afterlife. The evidence speaks for itself of where he would be if he didn't repent and try to make amends. I highly doubt that he did. But what people can also take from this lesson is that we're extremely responsible for who we influence. For example, if he would have just said to himself, I don't think it's a good idea to teach this man ceremonial magic. I'm not letting him into the Golden Dawn. I'm not telling him about the Golden Dawn. Then we would be, then I promise you, we would be living in a completely different world right now. In the later teachings, it'll take a while to get there because I'm trying to make this so comprehensive and go through so many different people. But if an individual sticks with it, they will come to the absolute realization that everything bad is connected to Aleister Crowley and his disciples that carried on his will of Thelema. I think that's all for now. I'll try to have part 7 out soon. Have a good rest of the night.